Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm the anime trainer, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to take a look at an article from a website that I've been involved with for a pretty long time. Now I'm sort of more of a lurker than I am somebody who interacts with stuff. I was on the forums for Bullshido for a while, but once again, more of a lurker than anything else. They put out, they're a good source for fighting, as their name says, bull crap on the internet because they try to get straight to the source of facts. Are there things that support this, the thing that's being spoken about? And it started off with more martial arts kind of things, if you don't know what Bullshido is, and that's more how I found them. So they tried to shine some light on martial arts that, well, don't work, which for the most part, I understand what they're saying. The application of martial arts in certain ways is bad in a lot of traditional martial arts because they're not focused on actual combat. They're focused on a lot of like tradition and whatnot. And that's not bad, but when you start talking about, your martial art being too deadly for sparring, then that's another problem. But that's a completely different video. Today, I saw this and I was like, you know what? I want to talk about this because yeah. So we've got Wonder Woman 1984 and consent. So that is the topic here. We're going to be, I've already read through this a little bit, and I kind of wanted to address some things in the article. It's a decent article in terms of what it talks about because it is a very important topic. As far as in media and whatnot, it's not something that's frequently talked about. Consent in regards to particularly men in certain situations. Now, mind you, if we're talking about like, there's a lot of consent issues. Like, we'll get into that in a moment. But like, let's just read the article. There are at least a dozen reasons why nobody should write this article, so we're going to lead with a couple of those here because editorially it's important to ensure that any subtext of this piece becomes actual text instead, and also important is the fact that I personally didn't want to write this either. Fair enough. I get it. It's kind of a rough topic. Then again, after sitting on it for 6 months after the movie was released, now, and it seems like nobody else did, here we are. Because I'm sure a lot of people have talked about this at length already. So, without delving too far into the subject and derailing the whole piece, let us just identify the obvious. Social media incentivizes people to find problems with things and stir up outrage. Absolutely. It's a way to get clicks. Thoughtful, earnest, and reasonable takes on any particular subject get fractions of the engagement of those that are controversial, contentious, and most typically in bad faith. So if you have if you find guys who are just like espousing a certain opinion but don't have any critical thought behind it, sometimes it's easier to share than others. This effect is so pronounced, people desperate for attention, any attention, make their whole presence revolve around making themselves look like idiots just to gain a following. I mean, they've got this thing here with the notice how all the cows are traditionally girl names. There's a deep connection between misogyny and consuming animals. And so you've got a whole bunch of people that jump on that and capitalize on the fact that somebody was dumb on the internet, which is every day. People are dumb on the internet every day. I'm sure you've been dumb on the internet and maybe just haven't been caught. But I know I've been dumb on the internet. Yeah, so there you go. There's so much noise in the media landscape that people desperate to be heard over it scrape the bottom of the barrel for a take on something that will be unique or at least relatively novel. Yeah, there's a lot of people competing for attention. This, as the saying goes, ain't that, but it's easy to be interpreted as such, and I appreciate the fact that they tried to distance themselves from that. So if you want to complain in the comment section about it, we have yeah, you get it. All right, so talking about incel stuff here. We have our own platform, more than just occasionally dropped an F-bomb or two. Yeah, it's Bullshido, they don't care. So they're talking about incels. The purpose for this article, just lumping every associated garbage person under that label. This includes MRAs, denizens of the manosphere, and any other expression of radical misogyny. I don't necessarily agree with that grouping of things. I think there's a lot of conversations in like men's rights groups and other things that are not toxic that are worth talking about, and I kind of feel like they shouldn't have grouped those together. Whether or not they're actually involuntary celibate, there's a strong case made that they should be. Once again, I feel like they're grouping a lot of people together that don't necessarily need to be grouped together. But they do have a good point. Sometimes people are toxic, and that goes back to the whole concept of trying to get attention. Nonetheless, this is one of those kinds of pieces of content that holds the potential for being picked up and run with by these losers as an example of something that validates their little, I try not to swear a lot on the channel, energy. So the core of this piece, although made in good faith to identify genuine disparity, is very similar to some of the arguments that these chest-thumping beta chimps, which the fact that they're using that terminology but also trying to be anti all the other stuff is kind of funny. Use in their virtual drum circles to drown out the tiny voices inside their heads, shouting in vain that their lack of hygiene and failure to develop actual personalities are the real reason for their problems. I'm sure that they're a group of that, but that's sort of a general straw man. But I get it. Enough equivocating. Let's do this. All right. So, since actual success in getting clicks on the internet depends largely on confirming biases and appealing to tribal narratives, we have now whittled down the potential audience to about 5 people. I guess I'm one of them, not including the author who still doesn't want to be writing this. What's sad is that there is nothing about the magical plot device that demanded Steve Trevor be brought back from the dead into another dude's body. That's okay. So, real quick, I should have said this before. If you haven't seen Wonder Woman 1984, or if you don't want to be spoiled for it, go away, because obviously spoilers. So, alert. This whole icky aspect of the story could have been avoided if they just had him appear out of nowhere, just like the extra nuclear missiles the president wished for did, unless those were just ordinary missiles in the spirit of nuclear missiles occupying them. That's a good point. Failing this, if somehow the laws of Wonder Woman comic canon demanded The Rock only bring back dead people Quantum Leap style, the entire production team and anyone involved in the Light Breeze brainstorming session that resulted in this then missed what could have been a genuine teaching moment about consent. A genuinely heroic version of the story in which recognizing Steve as just a passenger in Mr. Overly Photogenic Engineer's consciousness is Zeus Knows Where. Okay. The two keep it PG because that's the right thing to do, but Diana decided that she wanted to do the thing, which I get the appeal for it, but they're absolutely correct. A more heroic version would have been them recognizing that this is some other person's body, and they don't have any right to violate that, despite the fact that he's taking up residence in that person's brain for the time being. I feel like there could have been a little bit more thought into that, both in writing and in character. So I absolutely agree with that. Okay, assaulting up versus assaulting down. The question at the heart of this is that we really didn't want to ask, going back to the paragraph about incels and their smelly ilk, is a crude and thoroughly uncomfortable counterfactual, so we'll try to soften it up a bit with juvenile language. What if, instead of Wonder Woman bringing Steve Trevor back from the dead into another man's body and then lady boning that body, it was Superman bringing Lois Lane back from the dead into another woman's body, and then you get the idea. What if it was the Joker bringing back Harley Quinn, Batman bringing back his mom? Batman bringing back his mom's probably not good. Not in relation to that. None of those plots would have made it out of the writer's room with a woman at the table, but somehow this one did. Yes, this is where the minute hand stopped on the broken clock of the manosphere, and the fact that we've tripped over it on this topic is annoying the crap out of us. Honestly, I think you protest too much. The fact that if people are talking about it means that it is an issue and it needs to be addressed. Just as you're addressing it now, but you decided that you needed to take some time away from it in order to do so, which I appreciate. I appreciate in spirit, just because you're not jumping on the bandwagon right off the bat and trying to do the whole thing that you were talking about with outrage and clicks and whatnot. But the fact that certain people felt the need to talk about it, is for people who have experienced experienced consent violations. That's important. And as long as people are doing it tastefully and not trying to make it into some, overblown anti-woman thing, is important. So, yeah, I think you protest a little too much when you say it's annoying the crap out of you. Nonetheless, refusing to acknowledge when even the worst people are right about something makes it about those terrible people more than the facts, which the facts are important. And by extension, makes you almost just as terrible. Fair enough. It goes without saying that there's a double standard at play here. Well, absolutely. Um, if you're reading at this point, bless you. If you're watching at this point, bless you. By the way, if you're still watching, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video, because you're here obviously long enough for something that is not our normal content, which good for you. But if you like this stuff, I might do more about it. The screenwriter, director, and producers of Wonder Woman 84 were apparently so committed to the 80s aesthetic and nostalgia that they paid homage to it with like all the other sexual assault in films from that period, which they have an excellent point right here. 1984's Revenge of the Nerds, for example, most iconic comedy film of that year, featured a scene when one of the nerds dresses up in the same costume as the jock, and has sex with the jock's girlfriend. She's only momentarily distressed on finding out that the person she thought she was having sex with, because according to the context of the film, the nerd was really good at it. What? Yeah, so that's messed up. We know that's messed up. But wait, you say indignantly, the Revenge of the Nerds wasn't the most iconic comedy film of 1984. Okay, fine, Police Academy, in which the main character pays a prostitute to hide in a podium and ambush fillet the commander of the academy while he's giving a speech, then pretends to have done it himself in an effort to get kicked out. So yeah, that's also a problem. Yes, comedy ages poorly. Which, by the way, I really appreciate you guys going both directions with that. You took Revenge of the Nerds, which was a consent violation for toward a woman, and you took the movie Police Academy, which had a consent violation toward a man. So I appreciate that. Yes, comedy ages poorly. This article isn't about that, so take it to the forums, which I'm not gonna. This is about consent, which is completely absent from all three of those films. When Diana, Princess of Themyscira, daughter of Zeus, has sex with her dead boyfriend in Wonder Woman 84, she's not having sex with his body. She's instead having sex with the body of the dude he's been magically inhabiting. So instead of just bringing the character back from the dead, which would have eliminated this teeny little problem, they inexplicably had him occupy another man's body who was unconscious, which is like, if you've ever seen Supernatural, like the whole concept of Cass inside Jimmy, had those same problems. Like, absolutely had those same problems. They solved that problem later by Jimmy no longer being there, but it doesn't change the fact that it absolutely happened. We endeavored to get an actual philosopher to weigh on this, but the one we asked laughed at us, and it felt icky to keep pushing for comments after that. Lois Pinot can be arguably credited the most notable take on this subject, clearly laying out the parameters for affirmative consent by all parties involved, none of which was present in any of these films. Absolutely. Her take came in at the end of the 1980s, so one can make a good faith argument that while films of like Revenge of the Nerds and Police Academy were products of their time, which is a definite argument that you can make for movies that don't age well and things that we would find things that we wouldn't find reasonable now for us to put into a movie. You cannot make that argument about the movie that came out in 2020, which is supremely baffling here, that there is really no justification for why the creative team of Wonder Woman 84 made this a part of the film's plot, and yet everyone seems to be okay with it in a social climate where every frothing outrage monger and fringe topic crusader has endless incentives to concoct things to be indignant about. But on this perplexing issue, it's just background noise. Yes, the character herself has a deep and complicated history as both an icon of feminism and an object of fetishization, which is very present in all of old Wonder Woman stuff, if you've never checked that out. And we'd be remiss if we didn't reference this. But unless someone is going to actually make the argument that this is some kind of turning the tables thing, which thankfully nobody in the right mind seems to have done in the last 6 months since the film was released, whatever. Wonder Woman 1984 is a terrible movie for about a million reasons. You are not wrong there. But the people who enjoyed it without reservation are themselves terrible for this one. Okay, so I have a lot to say about this particular topic. We went through it. There's this video is sort of long, so I'm going to keep myself, kind of short. Unfortunately, when you have consent violations against men, if you have consent violations against women on screen, it is shown to be bad, which it should be. But if you have consent violations against men, very frequently it is not shown to be bad at all, forgotten like this movie, or in some cases, like 40 Days, 40 Nights, I believe it's called, where the guy tries to abstain from sex for Lent and ends up being, assaulted at one point and somehow made to feel bad about it like it was his fault that he got assaulted. Those types of things are more acceptable to be placed in a narrative. We've not crossed some sort of social threshold where we can say, yes, it's bad that this consent violation happened to a man. Most of the time, it's not even really going to be brought up. And there could be any number of reasons for that. And, you can speculate on it. It could have to do with the fact that more people are concerned with women's issues in those, in those media representations. Could also be the fact that people frequently think that if a man has sex, he should either be grateful for it or he wanted it anyway, so get over it. Which is as a victim of assault, I can tell you that's garbage. But there's any number of reasons that it could be that way, and I applaud Bullshido, whoever wrote this article. I didn't look at it, but I applaud whoever wrote this article for addressing it and trying to address it in a way that's not clickbaity. I do appreciate that. I feel like at the same time they were so concerned about being lumped in with those people that they were avoiding really addressing the concepts present and the fact that there is a pretty strong double standard currently about representation in the media in terms of consent. And that doesn't get talked about except in those places which they were upset with, like the manosphere or whatever else MRAs that they seem to all lump together. Those people talk about it because it's an obvious, as this article is pointing out, problem and double standard. But at the same time, you can't really denigrate those people for talking about it because that's what they do. So yeah, I think that sort of thing needs to be talked about more, and it doesn't need to be swept under the rug as some sort of like fringe, weird ideological group that just because they happen to be talking about men's issues. Because men's issues, obviously, as you guys admit in this article, however small you may think that they are, do exist, and they need to be talked about. So I feel like in some way you guys could have, you've got a little bit of bias on your own in relation to talking about those people and those groups. And, maybe it's just because you didn't call anybody out singly, or whatever, but you could have at least tried to present it in such a way as there are people who genuinely speak on these ideas and they are okay. But no, you just sort of lumped everybody together. And I thought that was sort of bullshit. Anyway, if you've stayed this long, I appreciate it. I'm not going to ramble anymore. Video's almost 20 minutes. But I do appreciate you guys stopping in. This is a little bit different video, but if you want to see more like it, let me know in the comments, and I will be happy to give my opinion on some things going forward. Kind of off the cuff here, but until next time, guys, good luck and train hard.